What is humility? And is humility something that we should be embracing? Today we're going to be talking about some of the potential shadows of humility and also its polar opposite, arrogance, and trying to find a balance between these two dichotomies that exist so that we can have a level of self-awareness that is actually accurate. So, to begin, we're going to talk about what humility is and define what humility is. So if we look up the definition, we'll see what humility actually is defined as. Okay, so if you saw my reel from today, I had this in the reel. So this is a follow-up on that. If you haven't seen the reel or the video, go check that out now really quickly and then come back so you have a grasp of the conversation that we're about to engage in. So humility is defined as a modest or low view of one's own importance. And the key things I want you to notice here is the words low and importance. So having a low view of one's own importance. So keep that in mind. A lot of people don't realize that this is a definition of humility. They just throw around the word because they hear it thrown around, and we don't truly understand what words mean, so we just use words without their true definition and understanding of that definition. So that's humility. And I think in order to understand humility, we also have to understand arrogance, which I see as the polar opposite. The other side of the spectrum is arrogance. And so let's look at the definition for arrogance. So to be arrogant is having or revealing an exaggerated sense of one's own importance. So this would be on the other end. So arrogance is when you think too highly of yourself. You think that you are more important or have greater abilities than you actually possess, that is actually tangibly visible or that we can actually assess and see. This is arrogance. So my question is, where is the balance between these two? So one is to see yourself as less important. The other one is to see yourself as more important. So humility is often praised, is often looked at something that we should strive for. People revere those who are humble. I should say a certain type of people revere those that are humble. Because on the arrogance side, we also have people who revere that arrogance. So you get people who love characters like Kanye West, who love characters that, that are just out there and saying that they're the greatest of all time and all this and that. People love that type of energy too. But these are both imbalances because they're not accurate portrayals of who we truly are. So who we truly are is much more complex than that, and it's much more intricate than that, and fluctuates more than that. So to be and try to embody one at all times is just to be out of balance completely, because you're not seeing the whole picture. So self-awareness is on a spectrum. These two things are both two levels of self-awareness. You can either have a self-awareness of yourself where you see yourself lower, or a self-awareness of yourself where you see yourself higher. But in all reality, we are equal. We are all equal in value, right? We all play different roles and whatnot, but at a certain extent, we are all equal in what we are. We're all energy. We are all consciousness. We're all these things that exist, that we coin. That's what we truly are. So one of the things about humility that I see very common, and I'll tell you a story that I have experience with this, is that people use humility to bring you down. Because remember, it's on a spectrum. So if you're operating at a level where you know who you are and you are confident in yourself, those who see themselves as humble and embody humility will try to bring you down, because remember, they're looking at themselves as lower than others. So when they see you embodying in confidence of who you are, to them that's higher in respect to where they see themselves at. So you'll get people who will say things like, you need to humble yourself, or you need to be humble, when in fact you might just be aware of who you are, or you might just be confident in your own abilities, not over exaggerated, but just aware of who you are. So when we were here in Hawaii, when we first landed, we were found ourselves homeless, right? We were just trying to find our way here on the island. And one of the things that we did is that we put an ad out on Craigslist. So we made an ad and we typed it out and we said, this is who we are, this is what we're into, and this is what we're looking for. We made it very detailed, very precise, and we actually had received this idea from some good friends of ours that this is something that they utilize and it worked for them, to where they put themselves out there, they shared who they were and what they were looking to be a part of, and they found a beautiful, tremendous opportunity that has got them to level up and make more of that situation. So with us, that's exactly what we did. We did the same thing. We put a picture of ourselves, we put ourselves out there, and we put it ourselves out there on platforms like Craigslist. So people would start messaging us, and they were calling us, and they were basically saying, like, you're asking for too much. Like, what you're looking for doesn't exist, or and eventually they started saying things like, you need to humble yourself. You need to be humble, because what you're asking for isn't a humble request. And by any means it wasn't, because it was a very accurate request. It was coming from the self-awareness that we had, that what we knew we had to offer, and we knew exactly what we wanted. This level of self-awareness is threatening to a lot of people who don't venture into themselves to know themselves on that deep of a level. So when they see somebody who knows exactly what they want, this feels like a threat. They feel threatened by this, and they look at it as something that's arrogance, when it's just, in fact, knowing yourself. It's knowing what you want out of life. So we started receiving people calling us and saying, like, you need to humble yourself, this and that. Well, lo and behold, we found exactly the situation that we were supposed to be in. We found a beautiful environment, as you can see, and we found a situation that was reciprocal to what we were offering, because we knew what we had to offer, and we knew that somewhere out there was somebody whose situation was such that we were the missing piece in that puzzle. So if I would have listened to that, I would have settled for something that was less than what I wanted and what I knew I deserved, because I would have been brought down to a level of somebody who didn't believe in themselves or know themselves enough to request from life what they were worthy of. So that's something you got to watch out for. And I see this a lot, and especially in disenfranchised or minority groups, where we try to humble each other. When we see somebody who's confident in who they are, we try to bring them down, because we don't have that level of self-awareness with ourselves. So we're like nah, like, you think too highly, that's crazy, like, you're asking for too much. And asking for something is fine as long as you know that you're willing to do what it takes to get it. That's the missing piece. That's the balance part of it. So if we talk about arrogance, which is the opposite of that, is like when people say things to you to try to uplift you, but it's coming from a false place. It's a false upliftment. So they think like, you the baddest bitch, or you the shit, but you not. You're really not. And you not working on yourself. You don't have that level of self-development. You haven't even begun to explore your purpose. There's all these things that you're not working on, but people are trying to convince you that you already made it. So that's the other end of the spectrum. And they both are extremes, and like I said, both different people praise different things. Some people praise humility and seeing yourself as less, and some people praise seeing yourself as more than what you truly are. But the balance point of that is seeing yourself as exactly for who you are, knowing exactly who you are, and having that level of self-awareness. That's where you want to be, because it's not too exaggerated and it's not too pitiful. It's not coming from that place of pity, because with humility, a lot of these people embrace humility because they want people to feel sorry for them. They want that pity and that energetic exchange of emotion that you get when you pity yourself, when you place yourself lower than others. So like I was saying, a lot of disenfranchised groups, minority groups, they embrace humility because they feel like they're in a place of victimization and victimhood. So it's easy to be like, oh, be humble, because they feel like by being humble that people are going to feel sorry and look at them as some lost cause or some cause that they can potentially help, and that's never a place you want to come from, because when you come from that place, you're generating, you might be generating attention, but it's not coming from a uplifting perspective, truly uplifting perspective. It's coming from a low energy, just negative energy perspective where people are feeling sorry for you, and you don't want that. So you want to have an accurate awareness of yourself. So, yeah, so many oppressed groups often adopt humility under the guise of well, we're just, we're no better than you, and the truth is that nobody's really better than anybody. Sure, people have more self-awareness and therefore they offer more, but we know that, but it's not coming from that place. They don't behave as their equal, they behave as their less. So a lot of people in the comments that they were saying, one of the points was, it's important to be humble because, you don't want to feel like you're too important and you're more important than other people. But that's not what humility is. Humility is seeing yourself as less important than people. So that's also unbalanced. And one of the things that you got to realize about humility and arrogance, which is these two ends of the spectrum, is that they both use to generate energy. So a lot of art, a lot of music, a lot of culture uses these two emotions or these two characteristics of humility and arrogance. So humility will make you feel sad about a peasant living off the land and just having a simple life where he's a farmer, and that's like the humble person, right? Because they're like perceived to be at the bottom of the totem. But from other people's perspective, it's like, man, that's the kind of life I would like to actually live. I would like to simplify my life. But they're not looking at it as I'm going lower than people. They're just looking at it, well, I know what I want, and this life that I'm living isn't all it's cracked up to be, so let me try a simple life. It's a different approach, so it's all about perception at the end of the day. And then arrogance is used for that too, you got these songs that are making you feel good, like you the baddest, you the greatest, like they just talk you up. So these emotions are used, or these characteristics are used to generate emotion. The problem is that we start to develop a false sense of who we are. We get a distorted perception of our own identity. So we do start thinking we the baddest. We do start thinking we the greatest, when in fact we haven't even began to do that work, and we haven't even began that process of actually taking action for that even to be true. So if you tell somebody that they already made it, that they already arrived, and they haven't, you're not doing them a service. You're doing them a disservice. So I know it's politically incorrect to tell people like they got to work on themselves and they not there yet. Just like it is politically incorrect to tell an obese person that they're not healthy or that they got some work to do, because the culture of today is pushing like, oh no, you beautiful just the way you are. You already perfect. You the baddest. You the shit. Don't let nobody tell you otherwise. Yet we know that that's a fallacy. We know that that's an illusion. And deep down inside, we know and can recognize when we have things that we need to work on. We can lie to ourselves all we want, but that's not an empowering perspective, because empowering is knowing where you are in this current moment in time. It's not to say that you're worth anything less, but if you're not embodying your greatest self, I'm not going to lie to you and telling you that you are, and you shouldn't want anybody to lie to you and tell you that you're embodying your greatest self when you truly are not, okay? That's arrogant, and that doesn't serve you in the least. And it also doesn't serve you to see yourself as less and not see the potential within yourself to become great. So both ends of the spectrum, like I said, both are imbalances. Know exactly who you are, okay? Study yourself and have a deep, intimate understanding of what you like, what you don't like, what you want out of life, and how you're going to attain that. See, a lot of people know what they want out of life, or they think they know what they want, but when you ask them, well, what does that mean to you? What's the deeper, describe that more deeply for me? They can't even give you a accurate description of what they truly want. So if they can't tell you what they truly want in accuracy, in detail, how to get there is even going to be more shrouded in mystery. How to accomplish what you want is even going to be further from your grasp if you can't even tell me what it is that you want on a deep level. So Drake had one of the lines, and it's funny because I was listening to this today while I was working out. He said, "Being humble don't work as well as being aware," and this is what I'm talking about, and this is what it ultimately comes down to. Being aware is knowing your weaknesses and understanding your weaknesses and acknowledging your weaknesses, but also embodying and embracing your strengths. So it's not about downplaying what you're good at just to make somebody else feel comfortable. It's about knowing, like, no, I'm pretty good at that. Actually, I've put in a lot of time and effort into that, or I just have a natural knack for that. That's okay. I might not be the best in the world. I know where I fall in relation to, in on a global scale, on a local scale. I have that level of self-awareness, but I'm not going to say that I ain't shit when I know that I do have some level of proficiency in that. And on the other end of the spectrum too, you know, um, I'm not going to claim that I don't know anything, or that I'm lower, or I don't have the potential to become great when I do see that within myself. So it's interesting because, like, if you look at even biblical texts in the Bible, even Jesus was given this type of talk where he was being told to humble himself, like, you not the son of God, you not this, you not that. And that was because the people around them didn't want to embrace their potential. So they were felt threatened by his realizations, and they felt threatened by his level of courage to be able to pursue a truth that he saw within himself, you know. And so I think that that's where we have to find balance, is just to understand who we are now in the moment, and to also understand where we could be and who we potentially could be, and to not kid ourselves about it. So yeah, that's essentially what my reel was about. Is And so if anybody has any questions, I'd love to continue the discussion. Let me see if anybody said anything that pertains to this. Yeah. So how's everybody doing? I know I kind of just sped through this, but I just want to give like the live and the talk first, and get all the talking points out the way. And then, if anybody wants to come in or anybody has any questions, we can continue from there. But, it's just, you got to be careful, because I say you got to be aware, because people often come with something that looks or can feel like is righteous, but it's kind of like shrouded, or it's really something else. It's really disguised as something else. So it might be righteousness disguised as insecurity. Like I just want you to be righteous and be humble, and so that you're righteous, but really it's like, nah, I just feel threatened by the fact that you have that level of self-awareness within yourself. So it's definitely comes back to just being aware and being conscious, of people and yourself ultimately. So yeah, if nobody has no questions, I'm just about to get off this live and save this. I just really wanted to come here and just expound on the topic at hand, because I feel like it's an important topic. I feel like people very easily fall into this trap of just wanting to embrace humility without truly understanding. And there's a place for it. I do think that people need a dose of humility when they're being arrogant, and people need a little bit of arrogance when they're too humble. They need to, so it's a spectrum. Sometimes you need one to balance out the other and get you to the middle, get you to that balance point. So it's like there's no one answer. You have to assess and know yourself. If you're somebody who's more prone to victimization, who's more prone to seeing yourself as less, maybe you want to embody some of the characteristics of that arrogant people have, to where they have this level of confidence that might get you to land right in the middle of being, self-aware, or being, or thinking about yourself in a way that is accurate. We live in delusion. I hear a lot of conversations going around, people, the way they describe themselves, the way they rate themselves, the way they see themselves is all distorted. It has no basis in reality. So if you can tell yourself one thing, but we also have to base it off what what our reality tells us and the feedback that we get, because you get feedback from your reality in the form of people, in the form of different perspectives and opinions, and you have to also listen to that because that's reflective of yourself. Sometimes you can't see yourself in the perfect light. Sometimes there's shadows that block the light from seeing ourselves in an accurate light, so you see yourself in a distorted version of it, you know. So yeah, man, that's the live for today, and I hope you guys have a beautiful day. I don't see no questions. I'm about to continue my day and, do some work in the yard, hang out. If anybody want to connect, feel free to hit me up and message me if you have any questions, want to talk about anything. I'll try to get back to everybody as best as I can. So with that being said, this is humility, this is arrogance, and this is balance, is knowing thyself. All right.